On September 23, 1999, NASA lost contact with the Mars Climate Orbiter. The spacecraft had traveled 416 million miles over 9 months, carrying instruments to study Martian weather and climate. It was supposed to enter orbit around Mars, begin its mission, and send back valuable data. Instead, it burned up in the Martian atmosphere and was destroyed. The reason? One team used inches, another team used centimeters. Nobody caught the mistake. It's considered one of the most expensive and embarrassing errors in NASA history, and it all came down to something you learn in middle school. Always check your units. The Mars Climate Orbiter was part of NASA's Faster, Better, Cheaper initiative in the 1990s. After several expensive mission failures, NASA decided to do more missions with smaller budgets. The Climate Orbiter cost $125 million, which sounds like a lot, but was actually cheap for a Mars mission. For comparison, the Mars rovers cost around $800 million each. The spacecraft launched on December 11, 1998. Everything went smoothly for 9 months. The spacecraft traveled through space, made course corrections, and stayed on track. As the Climate Orbiter approached Mars, it needed to fire its engines to slow down and enter orbit. The plan was to pass about 150 kilometers above the Martian surface. But there was a problem nobody had noticed. Throughout the flight, small thruster firings had been used to keep the spacecraft on course. Ground control used these to calculate position. Except the calculations were wrong. Here's where it gets technical. 2 different pieces of software were communicating with each other. One was made by Lockheed Martin Astronautics in Denver. The other was used by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. The Lockheed Martin software outputted its numbers in pound-force seconds, imperial. The NASA software expected the numbers to be in Newton seconds, metric. Nobody converted the units. 1 Newton equals about 0.2225 pounds of force. So every number the NASA software received was off by a factor of 4.45. Every trajectory correction pushed the spacecraft further off course instead of fixing it. For 9 months, the Climate Orbiter was drifting closer and closer to Mars than planned. People noticed something was wrong. Navigation team members saw the numbers didn't quite make sense. Some engineers raised concerns that the orbit insertion might be too low. But the mission was under the faster, better, cheaper philosophy. Teams were small, overworked, and pressured to trust the software. The discrepancy wasn't huge, at least not obviously. On September 23, 1999, the Mars Climate Orbiter fired its engines and disappeared behind Mars. Mission Control waited for it to reappear. It never did. They waited. They tried different radio frequencies. Nothing. Slowly, the horrible reality set in. The spacecraft was gone. The Climate Orbiter hadn't passed 150 kilometers above Mars. It had passed as low as 57 kilometers. The spacecraft encountered atmospheric drag it wasn't designed to handle. It either burned up or skipped off the atmosphere, tumbling and broken. 9 months of travel, $125 million, all gone because nobody converted pounds to newtons. NASA launched a review. The investigation revealed the unit conversion error within days. It was a mistake that would get you points deducted on a high school physics test. But it wasn't just the math. It was communication failures, understaffing, and ignored warnings. Nobody signed off confirming the units matched. The loss was a huge embarrassment. The media had a field day. Headlines screamed about the $125 million math mistake. It was especially painful because it was such a dumb mistake. It wasn't the only one. The Mars Polar Lander also failed that year, but the Climate Orbiter stands out because it was so preventable. The disaster is now taught in engineering schools worldwide. It's the perfect example of what happens when teams don't communicate and assumptions aren't verified. Every NASA mission since has multiple layers of verification. Every calculation is checked. Units are confirmed and reconfirmed. It's the most expensive typo in history and a permanent reminder that in space exploration, when you're traveling 416 million miles, the smallest details matter most.